What archaeological discoveries have been made here in Egypt, where I am recording this podcast? And do they affirm or contradict the Bible? Stay tuned to learn more.
Welcome to the Bible and Theology Matters podcast,
where we discuss all things Bible and theology.
Because it matters. What you really believe determines how you really behave.
Now, here is your host, Associate Professor of Bible Exposition at Dallas Theological Seminary
and Professor of Bible and Theology for the National Theological College and Graduate School,
Dr. Paul Weaver.
Welcome back to the Bible and Theology Matters podcast. I have a special episode planned for you today. I am here in Alexandria, Egypt, to teach a course on the life of Christ at the National Theological College and Graduate School. NTCGS is doing an incredible work training pastors, teachers, missionaries, and lay leaders of the local church. I'm so excited about what they are doing here that my wife and I make the time and financial sacrifice for me to teach with NTCGS twice a year. We have campuses here in Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and East Africa. To learn more about how you can partner with NTCGS financially to train desperately needed leaders in this region of the world, visit ntcgs.org. Well, I flew into Cairo, Egypt, and then drove up to Alexandria, Egypt, here in the north on the Mediterranean Sea, where I am teaching this week. In today's episode, I would like to share with you about 3 amazing faith-affirming findings that are discovered here in Egypt. While here in Egypt, I will also be making a quick trip down to southern part of Egypt to Luxor, Egypt, where the Shishak Relief of the biblical Pharaoh Shishak ruled, as well as where the Merneptah Stele was discovered. Finally, I'm going to discuss papyrus, or P52, which was discovered in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. So in this episode, I will be utilizing a lot of pictures in the video version of this program. So if you're listening to this program, you may want to go over to our YouTube page and watch this program instead. I will also make these pictures and the PowerPoint presentation available in the show notes. The first archaeological discovery here in Egypt that I would like to discuss is the Merneptah Stele. This stele is housed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Egypt. I was there last year and recorded a video on this at that time. I saw the Merneptah Stele in person, and this year I am in front of the location where the Merneptah Stele was originally discovered. The Merneptah Stele was discovered in 1896 by Sir William Flanders Petrie in western Thebes, Egypt, at Pharaoh Merneptah's temple here. This is approximately 500 miles south of the Mediterranean Sea near modern Luxor. Initially, Petrie was discouraged by what little they had found at Merneptah's temple here. He called it disastrously dull, so much so that he was tempted to, and I quote, leave it as fruitless. Fortunately, he did not, because the Merneptah Stele was discovered in the last corner of the excavation area, right where I'm standing. In Petrie's own words, the stele will be better known in the world than anything else I have found. Petrie's words have been proven true. A stele is an inscribed stone slab that stands upright. In the ancient world, steles commemorated an important event or declared military victories. The Merneptah Stele was no exception. It's named after Pharaoh Merneptah. Merneptah reigned over Egypt from around 1213 to 1203 BC, and this stele records the military exploits of Pharaoh Merneptah. The stele was made out of black granite and is massive in size. It measures approximately 10.4 feet tall and 5.4 feet wide, and approximately 12 inches deep. At the top of this monument, the Egyptian god Amun-Ra is twice depicted. To the left and right of Amun-Ra are also 2 depictions of Merneptah, receiving a sword from Amun-Ra. The god Khonsu stands on the far right side of the stele to the right depiction of Merneptah, and the goddess Mut stands on the far left side of the stele to the left of the left depiction of Merneptah. These depictions represent Merneptah's belief that his military achievements were enabled by the gods. Etched into this black granite stele is a hieroglyphic inscription that describes a military campaign that occurred during the first years of Merneptah's reign, around 1210 BC. Most of the inscription concerns Merneptah's military victories over Libya, but the last 2 lines on the stele refer to a military campaign in the land of Canaan. Victories are declared over several cities, including Ashkelon, Gezer, and Yanoam. Ashkelon was a Canaanite city which would become a Philistine city on the coastal land of Canaan. Gezer was inland, a Canaanite city destroyed by a later Egyptian pharaoh and given from the father of the bride to Solomon as a wedding gift. See 1 Kings 9:16. It would later become one of the cities that was strategically fortified by Solomon. See 1 Kings 9:15. As is typical of ancient historiography, Merneptah embellished his military accomplishments and minimized or even ignored his defeats. This is one important element that distinguishes the Old and New Testament scriptures from all other writings of antiquity. The Bible honestly describes both the victories and the failures of the heroes of the faith. The Merneptah Stele reads, "Carried off is Ashkelon, taken is Gezer, Yanoam is made as that which does not exist." But what is most exciting and significant to the student of the Hebrew Bible is what follows. The Merneptah Stele reads, "Israel is laid waste, his seed is not." Merneptah exaggerated and embellished his military achievements, implying that Israel was annihilated, which of course is refuted both by the Hebrew Bible and the archaeological record. However, what it does affirm is significant. The Merneptah Stele includes an important hieroglyphic symbol or determinatives following the names of Ashkelon, Gezer, and Yanoam. The symbol, or also called determinatives, appears like a crown, which is indicating that these were cities or city-states. However, the symbols following the name of Israel are very different. These symbols indicate that Israel was not yet a fortified kingdom, just a significant people group. What's the significance of all this? Well, several of the details just discussed are faith-affirming. What is recorded on the Merneptah Stele affirms the historicity and reliability of Scripture on several levels. First, the stele identifies a group of people known as Israel living in the land we know as Israel. Shanks highlights the significance of the find, writing this: "If you're looking for evidence of early Israel, it would be hard to imagine something better than this, a people living in the area where and when, according to the biblical account, the Israelites were said to have emerged." The stele is dated to 1210 BC, and therefore it is the earliest, undebated, extra-biblical source, or source outside of the Bible itself, that mentions Israel by name. Second significant detail here. This stele records the military conquest of Merneptah in Libya and Canaan, places the nation of Israel in the land of Canaan by 1210 BC. This provides decisive evidence that silences some scholars who had previously argued that the nation of Israel was insignificant in 1210 BC, if it even existed at all. Shanks also points out these Israelites were so important that the Pharaoh of Egypt knew of them and boasted at defeating them. That must have been worth bragging about. The fact that Merneptah lists Israel on the stele indicates that Israel was a significant people group during Merneptah's reign. Merneptah would not have even mentioned being victorious in battle over a small and insignificant group of people. Third, the Merneptah Stele makes the latest of the theorized late dates of the Exodus impossible. See 1 Kings 6:1. The biblical text, when read straightforwardly, places the Exodus around 1446 BC and the conquest of the Promised Land around 1400 BC, after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. The discovery of the Merneptah Stele supports the early Exodus and disproves the theories held by many that the Exodus did not occur until as late as 1150 BC. The Exodus could not have been in 1150 BC if the nation of Israel was already in the land in 1210 BC. The Merneptah Stele also makes the 1240 BC and 1250 BC Exodus dates highly implausible as well. Fourth, and finally, the hieroglyphic symbol that follows the name of Israel indicates that Israel in 1210 BC was regarded as a significant people group rather than an established nation, which usually involves a king. This is exactly what the Bible describes. Saul would not be crowned for another 150 years, and Solomon would not start fortifying key cities until around the middle of the 10th century BC. The book of Judges reminds the reader repeatedly, in those days, Israel had no king. See Judges 17:6 and following. Biblical archaeology, when done honestly and carefully, does not contradict, but rather affirms the biblical record. The second discovery found here in Egypt that I would like to discuss with you is the Shishak Relief. I am recording today's faith-affirming finding video from Karnak Temple here near modern-day Luxor. An incredible faith-affirming finding was discovered here surrounding Pharaoh Shishak. It is called the Shishak Relief. The Shishak Relief was discovered at the Karnak Temple here. The Karnak Temple is located just north of Thebes, modern-day Luxor, on the east side of the Nile River. The Shishak Relief was discovered on a wall of the entrance to the temple of the Egyptian god Amun. In the 1820s, it was realized that these hieroglyphics were recounting Pharaoh Shishak, or Shishak in the Bible, his military campaign in Canaan. This is the Shishak of the Bible. The Karnak Temple of Amun is believed to have been the construction project of multiple successive pharaohs. It is massive in size, and there was nothing comparable to it in the ancient world. The Shishak Relief was, of course, commissioned by Shishak himself to boast of his military conquests. The Shishak Relief includes Shishak's god Amun and cartouches, or name rings, of conquered cities. Shishak's god Amun is depicted with ropes in one of his hands. These ropes are attached to prisoners of war who are bound by ropes. The prisoners are also pictured bound to the other prisoners with ropes around the necks, and the prisoners' torso areas are in the form of cartouches, or name rings. A cartouche is an oval with Egyptian hieroglyphics inside. Within each of these cartouches are names of the cities, many of which are from Judah and Israel, that Shishak claims to have conquered. And this scene is on the temple wall here to honor Shishak's god Amun for providing military success. Although not all of the name rings survived antiquity, it is estimated, based on the spacing and number of rows, that there were approximately 187 cartouches. Each of these cartouches would represent a city that was conquered. In 1925, another very significant discovery was revealed. A team from the University of Chicago discovered a 15-inch fragment of Shishak's victory stele. This inscription was uncovered hundreds of miles away from Karnak Temple in Megiddo, one of Solomon's fortified cities. See also 1 Kings 9:15. This provides further corroboration to the story recorded on this entrance to the Karnak Temple. The fragment of the victory stele is 15 inches and identifies the commissioner of the stele, Pharaoh Shishak himself. His birth name is on the right cartouche. His throne name is on the left one. It is believed that Shishak would have posted this victory stele at Megiddo after he took control of this important city. An Egyptian pharaoh by the name of Shishak is mentioned several times in the book of 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles. He is first mentioned in 1 Kings 11:40. After rebelling against Solomon, Jeroboam fled to Egypt for safety. Shishak provided protection for Jeroboam, who would have been Solomon's enemy at the time, until Solomon's death. See also 1 Kings 11:40. Shishak is mentioned in parallel accounts found in 1 Kings 14 and 2 Chronicles 12. 5 years after Solomon's death and the rupture of the United Kingdom into two separate kingdoms, Shishak exploited their weakness and led a military campaign against Judah and King Rehoboam. See 1 Kings 14 and 2 Chronicles 12. The chronicler states that Shishak's military victories were because Israel forsook the law of the Lord and they had been unfaithful to the Lord. In Shishak's military campaign, he conquered the fortified cities of Judah, but because they humbled themselves in response to God's declaration of judgment, the city of Jerusalem was spared from destruction. Currid writes about the unmistakable correspondence between the biblical account and the evidence here at Karnak Temple, and I quote, "One of the strongest connections between the Bible and other ancient Near East evidences is its presentation of the invasion of Judah and Israel by the forces of Pharaoh Shishak of Egypt. The main temple of Amun at Karnak that catalogs town by town Shishak's military incursion. The Karnak relief provides a striking verification of the biblical account that cannot be ignored. The Shishak relief and accompanying inscriptions is indeed faith-affirming on many counts. First, the Shishak Relief and Victory Stele affirms that there was indeed a historical pharaoh named Shishak. Second, the timeline of Shishak's rule, as recorded in the Egyptian sources, indicates that Shishak was a contemporary of Solomon, just as the Bible records. And third, the Shishak Relief and inscription, as well as the destroyed remains of Gezer, affirm the historicity of the events described in 1 Kings 14 and 2 Chronicles 12. Shishak led a successful military campaign against Judah, as the Bible indicates. Fourth, many cities identified on the Shishak Relief in the name rings are ancient Israelite cities that have been definitively identified, including but not limited to Gezer, Beth Horon, Gibeon, Beth-shean, and Megiddo. Fifth, the city of Jerusalem is not listed as a city conquered by Pharaoh Shishak, which is exactly what the Bible states. And sixth, and finally, the fragment of the Victory Stele discovered at Megiddo offers additional corroboration of Shishak's military campaign in Canaan in general and Megiddo in particular. The Shishak Relief provides great corroboration confidence in the historicity and reliability of Scripture. There is one additional valuable component to this relief. Although many of the ancient cities of Israel and Judah have yet to be identified and countless tells have yet to be excavated, the cartouche rings, or the name rings, provide a fascinating map of ancient Israel in the 10th century BC. The third and final amazing archaeological discovery that I would like to share with you that has been discovered here in Egypt is the P52 fragment, also known as the John Rylands Papyrus. P52 was acquired in 1920 by Bernard Grenfell on behalf of the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England. It was purchased along with many other fragments from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, which is approximately 125 miles south of Cairo along the Nile River. Over 40,000 ancient papyri were discovered there. Most of these fragments were relatively insignificant, everyday records of regular people from antiquity. However, the P52 fragment was exceptional. Although the John Rylands fragment was acquired in 1920 among many other papyri, the realization of its contents was not comprehended for another 14 years. In 1934, Colin Roberts, just a 24-year-old fellow of St. John's College at Oxford at the time, was looking through the unpublished papyri from Oxyrhynchus when he recognized that a fragment in the collection included a few lines from the Gospel of John. Roberts realized the significance of this discovery and wrote about it shortly thereafter in 1935. The John Rylands fragment, or P52, is approximately 3.5 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide. It is approximately the size of a credit card. The fragment was originally part of a codex, or an ancient book, with writing on both sides, rather than a scroll that includes writing on only one side. The fragment consists of 7 lines of writing on either side with 114 legible letters in total. One side of the fragment records John 18 verses 31 to 33, and the opposite side of the fragment, P52, records portions of John 18 verses 37 to 38. What is the significance of this ancient manuscript? Well, the significance of the P52 fragment is not related to which passage was discovered on it from John's Gospel, but rather that it is the oldest discovered manuscript of any portion of the New Testament in general, and John's Gospel in particular. It was originally dated to AD 100 or 125. Others have dated it from AD 125 to 175. Still others dated it as early as the late 1st century AD. This is the earliest surviving Christian codex, or ancient book. As it relates to the New Testament scriptures, in particular, this discovery helps us to better understand the transmission process, as well as to establish that Christians were using codexes early to record and transmit the Holy Scriptures. As Roberts wrote, the fact that it is part of a codex, not a scroll, need now cause no surprise. Thanks to recent discoveries, we are coming to regard the codex as the normal vehicle for Christian literature, even in the 2nd century. The discovery and dating of P52 also provides strong manuscript evidence that the Gospel of John was written early and distributed widely. As Metzger states, although the extent of the verses preserved is so slight, in one respect, this tiny scrap of papyrus possesses quite as much evidential value as would the complete codex. Just as Robinson Crusoe, seeing but a single footprint in the sand, concluded that another human being with 2 feet was present on the island with him, so P52 proves the existence and use of the fourth gospel during the first half of the 2nd century in a provincial town along the Nile, far removed from its traditional place of composition, Ephesus in Asia Minor. For the Gospel of John to make it down all the way to Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, means the original text must have been written many years prior, at a minimum of 30 to 50 years earlier. This discovery debunks the position of many skeptics who had previously suggested that the Gospel of John was written by someone in the 2nd century who was not an eyewitness of the life of Christ. The discovery of P52 silenced most critics. A copy of the Gospel of John could not have been made before the original. The discovery of P52 supports the Church's historical understanding that the Gospel of John was indeed written by the Apostle John in the late 1st century. This amazing discovery reaffirms that the Gospel of John is historically reliable. It reflects a 1st century author's account, the Apostle John. Well, I trust that these 3 archaeological discoveries from Egypt have indeed been faith-affirming to you. We have in our hands a book that is historically reliable and worthy of our careful study. If you're enjoying the Bible and Theology Matters podcast, will you do me a personal favor and like this podcast wherever it is that you listen or watch your podcast programs? Please also consider subscribing to it and sharing it with someone you know. These actions will help our program to become more accessible to those who are looking for faith-affirming programming. A special thanks to Dallas Theological Seminary, who is a sponsor of this program. If you would like to be a student of mine and other wonderful professors at Dallas Theological Seminary, please visit dts.edu. Well, goodbye from now, from Egypt. Until next time, never forget, Bible and theology matters, because what you really believe determines how you really behave.
Bible and Theology Matters podcast is a listener-supported podcast
devoted to helping Christians grow in their knowledge of the Word of God and in their relationship to the God of the Word.
To learn how you can partner with the Bible and Theology Matters podcast,
Visit us at BibleandTheologyMatters.com. That's Bible, A-N-D, TheologyMatters.com.